taking Bass with me into our opening game. It's going to be ground zero in blue. The Direwolves are in orange, and we are underway.
And here we go, best of 7. So like we said, plenty of time for either one of these teams to develop here, but this feels like a game Direwolves need to win. If they want to try and have a chance in this series, they need to start off strong.
Yeah, and that's what I'm going to be looking for. I always do like to parrot how important that first goal is, especially for a team like the Direwolves, who are so momentum-based. They're the type of team that can find that quick goal, which Ground Zero almost found right there, and turn it into a series-dominating performance. The issue is, Ground Zero are probably one of the best teams at sort of bouncing back from adverse situations. We saw the comebacks yesterday, and we saw Torsos today nearly get a spike through. However, it will be expressed for our first goal.
And that's not great for Direwolves here. We said they needed a little bit of confidence going into this game, and to see a little bit of a shaky defense here, that's not boding well for the team. But again, plenty of time throughout this series. Even if they do actually end up dropping this first game, they've got plenty of time to recover.
That entire setup and the subsequent goal, to me, just felt like more Torsos things. So I have to admit, from a mechanical perspective, we've always known Torsos has the goods. He's one of the, if not the most iconic Oceanic player, I feel, in this region, right up there with your Drip A's and your CJs. But lately, the mechanics have been on another level. Speaking of which, Amphis, get the reset, get the read, pinch it through, all good in the hood. Ground Zero up 2-0.
Oh, that's just wrong. Amphis locked into that flip reset perfectly and baited out the defense without a second thought. Misty looked like they were going to be able to make the save, but no such luck on that one, unfortunately. 2-0 in favor of Ground Zero here, and this is not the Direwolves we know and love right now. They're getting pressed into their own half and look very muted on offense.
And meanwhile, on the Ground Zero side, we're almost in a one-upmanship battle. You pull off a mech play, let's see what I can do. And we're playing horse with Express just barreling through defenders, opening that doorway. This could be dire times for the Direwolves. Express, nice shutdown across that middle of the pitch. They'll be looking to turn this into an attacking effort. I do feel Direwolves still can bring it back with that one big pop-off goal, that one big pop-off moment, but I do not want to downplay how key this start is for Ground Zero.
Yeah, like we said, Ground Zero, a team that really has had some up and downs here. We're not going to say inconsistency yet because they really haven't had enough time of these down plays to really feel that it's inconsistent. But if they are going to play somewhat inconsistently, you need to get up in their face and really make them feel uncomfortable. And they don't look that way at all right now. They look very in control of this game, very comfortable the way that they are moving around this pitch. And, well, with 2 minutes gone at this point, Ground Zero seemed to have shaken off those first game nerves, and Direwolves not quite able to do so.
Yeah, Direwolves constantly on the back foot for the time being, although if you go back to where Direwolves have found successes in the past, it has been playing that more defense counterattacking style. They are one of the best defending teams in the region. Their mechanics will often pull them out of it. Speaking of which, the double reset looks for the double touch. Instead, it's a pass down to Walcott, and now we have a 2-1 game.
There we go, Direwolves. That's what we were looking for. More specifically, that's what we're looking for. Fiber with the double flip reset to set up his teammate. I mean, listen, we said he was going to be a mechanical monkey. He's already displaying it, and we're not even through the first game.
Yeah, this has been 3 incredible goals, all things considered, to kick off this semifinal. Look, I promised a show tonight, and it's good to see our players delivering now. Direwolves are going to be looking for that equalizing shot. Fiber again trying to control it from the corner. Nice read from Amphis. Walcott already there. That was a strike with authority. Torsos still able to find the save.
But they're backed into their half for quite some time here, and this is something we hadn't seen a lot of from Direwolves in this first game, this overwhelming offensive pressure, and it's kind of what we expect from the team, so the fact that they didn't get it for the first half of the game was surprising. Now that it's returned, the question is can they find themselves a second goal here? Because, again, we have to further emphasize this. Direwolves, this game is much more important for them. They need a strong start if they want a shot at this one.
It's not just this game that's important too, but the stature of this series. I really want to hone in on the importance that if the Direwolves want to get to Sweden, if they want to qualify for that top 2 and get to the international land, this series right here is a must-win for them. They need to be on as equal footing to Ground Zero as possible, which in a lot of ways still is crazy to me. So many people kind of peg the Renegades as being that team to possibly overcome. A win for the Direwolves, though, it could be over the top of Ground Zero. That it's a must-do. It's almost do or die at this stage of our regional events.
Yeah, that's the big thing, is that if you give Ground Zero 2 number 2s in a row, at a certain point, yes, you might technically be able to come back if they completely fall off in Regional 3, but you don't want to have to rely on that. You just want to prove that you are better than that team. And I'm going to be honest, I still can't believe, first off, I can't believe the shots we're seeing go against Ground Zero here, barely holding on, but I can't believe we're speaking about Ground Zero possibly getting overtaken as the second place team. The fact that we're even talking about Ground Zero getting overtaken is crazy. The fact we're talking about them in that position at second place, never in my mind would this have been the scenario had, you know, we had just looked at RLCSX.
Absolutely. It was a bit of a shocker, I feel like. I hope, and from what we've seen so far, I have to believe falling short to the Renegades in that first regional was a bit of that wake-up call. Ampus goes for the musty, doesn't quite find the power that they were looking for. Still with 5 seconds remaining, that ball on the orange side of the pitch. Direwolves need to make the 0 second happen. Fiber's shot was on target. Express, however, there for the save, and Ground Zero survived game number 1.
Oh, my word. And I think survive is by far the best description there. Yeah, you can see with Torsos just a little bit nervous up top there. And yeah, this is kind of what we're expecting from these two teams. It's going to be close. So when we saw Direwolves without really being able to pop off in that first game, it made sense that in the back half they finally started to do so. And I'm hoping that this really does go to that 7th game of a best of 7. I think Hyperia was correct. Direwolves are not walking away with this really easily. If they want to have this, it's going to be a battle.
Yeah, and they have to be willing to sort of fight for it. Taking a look at the stats, though, the one stat that has me a bit concerned on the Direwolf side was the lack of involvement from Misty in particular. Misty has been one of the most improved players from the middle of RLCSX to the end of RLCSX to where this player is at right now. I mean, people were calling Misty sort of the best double touch in the region. Mechanically has driven to that next stage, and is such a quintessential part of the Direwolves when they find successes. They haven't done a good job of getting Misty involved so far in game number 1. I think if Misty can find ways to have more of an impact in the 2nd, 3rd, 4th, 5th, 6th, 7th game, that's when we'll see the Direwolves look a bit more comfortable.
100%. I think that Direwolves really are at their best when they're using every single tool accessible. And by that, I mean all 3 players getting involved in both their offense and defense, because it does sort of feel like a lot of the time we rely on Fiber and Walcott to be that offense, but Misty can do it too. And similarly, we can see offense and defense from both sides of the pitch here. So I'm hoping we get a good back and forth here. I don't want to see Ground Zero out the gates firing again here. Direwolves, you do not want to let this one get too far away from you. Momentum is a massive thing, and Direwolves didn't seem to have any momentum in game number 1.
How many resets are we going to see in this series? Not just in terms of shots on target, but it feels like every time we're seeing a player alone with the ball, yeah, it's like, yeah, guess what? It's reset time. Just sort of to put those stats down. It makes sense when it's Ground Zero versus Direwolves going at each other that we do get to see them come out as we watch Torsos take the shot, crossing up the defense and striking first. Ground Zero again find first blood.
We're seeing Direwolves really panic on defense right now. Double commit there completely opens up the net, and you can understand why Torsos puts that into the back of it. It's just not that hard of a shot. It's pretty standard. At this level, you give an opening like that, a team is going to punish. And for Direwolves, who are starting to find that offensive ability, now it's time to start prioritizing defense. They look way too shaky for their own good.
Yeah, Direwolves are going to need to find a way, I feel, to equalize quicker as opposed to later, if for any reason, so to find that equal footing. Direwolves do look best when they have the lead. That just hasn't been an option yet today. Misty again puts it up, hoping for a clear. This one will come through by Walcott. Torsos already cheating forward. You can see they want to make that read underneath. They want to force Direwolves on that back foot. The bump attempt does not make contact, but when you have a player like Express on the back line, well, they'll be able to make the save despite Walcott coming at you from bizarre angles.
It's a little bit of an odd rotation there for Direwolves, but it's a little bit on par with everything that we're seeing from them right now. Oh my word, the double demo though. Yeah, I don't think any of us would have expected that one. Ground Zero, that's a freebie, and not because Direwolves dropped the ball, but because they stepped up when it counted.
And it's not your conventional double demo. It's just sort of the conga line through the box right there. One for Torsos, one for Amphis, and Express says thank you very, very much. We'll go ahead and take our 2-0 lead. Ground Zero, they're not messing or playing with their food today. They are going straight for the kill, it feels like. And it is exciting to watch. A very fast start again for Ground Zero in our second game. They're looking smooth.
They look like the Ground Zero we know and love, and this is why we were saying that, you know, Ground Zero on paper should be taking this one, but this isn't one of these things where I feel like Direwolves are playing poorly overall. It just kind of feels like they haven't found that cohesion yet, and Ground Zero are just taking advantage of that. So I'm wondering if we're going to see a switch up here. 3 minutes left in game number 2, and I think that Direwolves still have a little bit to prove here. It's going to happen eventually. The question is what's going to be that spark? What is going to be the catalyst that gets this offense going?
I mean, my eyes are pretty much always going to be glued to Fiber in situations like this. We've seen what they can do. We've already seen what they can do in this series alone. However, Misty, I feel, is the one that would have that bigger impact. Again, had a minimal impact in game number 1. As soon as Misty can get more consistently involved, we will see a stronger showing, I feel, from the team overall. This is not the look I want to see, though. Wide open net for Express and a 3-0 lead for Ground Zero.
Oh, this is unfortunate, and it's the player that we're saying needs to step up the most too. Misty just not the greatest touch to clear that one out. And again, this is where Ground Zero are really well making up that ground, pun intended here. They're continuing to punish on every single mistake on the back end. For a team like Direwolves who don't normally show that, to see this many errors already and another one there as Misty just can't quite connect on the flip, this is uncharacteristic, and that's putting it pretty lightly.
It has been a rougher start for the team, but I do really appreciate the physicality we're coming across. But I also do want to throw back to when the team does struggle. Hold that thought. Finally, Misty gets involved, and that's going to be a 3-1 game.
Oh, finally we get to see a little bit of good offense there. It's a beautiful pass, but it's an even better shot out of Misty with 2 defenders in net and a third coming flying through. And Amphis, you really had to put that perfectly, and underneath both players, bounce shot and in is exactly how we want to see Misty get involved with this offense. Unfortunately, this is looking like the same story here, though, Formal. Direwolves, they're getting into this one, but they're doing so with over half the game gone already.
It's just how much can they rally off of one large play? How much space can they take back for themselves, particularly across that center of the pitch right now? I like that pass down, but Misty was already beaten. Now Amphis will win the race to the ball. 4-1 lead, Ground Zero.
Again, their offense is starting to come to life here, but it really feels like it's at the expense of their defense here. And this is something you see a lot in professional Rocket League, and pretty much Rocket League at every level, is that once you do start to find that offensive pressure, you recognize that a lot of it is due to the fact that, well, you are putting on pressure. You're keeping a good midfield line. And Direwolves, they are keeping a good midfield line, but their defense is really where we are kind of have eyes on, trying to figure out, are they going to be able to keep up that pressure while not at the expense of their defense? And in my opinion, Formal, so far, every time their offense has looked pretty solid, it's been at the expense of their defense.
And their defense has historically been the Direwolves' strength. So if you're taking that away from them with some of these rambunctious offensive attacks, it's leaving themselves exposed to one of the teams that is the best at punishing, if not the best pinch I have seen yet. 122 kilometers per hour.
I want to act like I'm surprised that happened, but we saw the dive out at midfield. It's a beautiful shot to finish it off, but that goal felt inevitable at a certain point, Formal. Ground Zero are continually making Direwolves punishing them out at midfield here because of the fact that they are putting on this pressure. I know that it's got to be, frustrating for Direwolves to feel this much pressure and feel like they're just kind of giving up silly goals, but guys, these are preventable. You really need to start buckling down on defense. If you can do that, offense will eventually come.
I think at this stage, though, you have to go back to how easily it felt like Ground Zero was able to get those goals when they did have the Direwolves press back on defense, when they were on that backboard. And just by being able to find little gaps and do make those mechanical plays, Torsos almost gets the double right there. Ground Zero, they feel punchy today. They feel dynamic today. They feel like every single touch has that goal in mind. And you can see right there, Torsos still finding those angles, forcing these kind of ridiculous reads and saves out of the Direwolves. I do like that flick, though. It almost goes in. I don't think the Direwolves are done yet.
No, I don't think that they're out of this series by a long shot here, but it very much does kind of feel like they need to go back to the drawing board and just try something different here. It doesn't seem like their offense has the same sort of punch as before, but that's the second time now they've found a good pass out of the corner that has led to a goal. Maybe this is where they start to find their success.
Express just didn't have that read, unfortunately, from that backboard looking at the goal right there. Typically, you would expect Express to kind of make that shot, and I almost feel as if the pass was a bit slower than what Express was expecting in that situation. I feel like had they known it was going to be a slower dish out, you almost would have challenged a bit further forward in the box as opposed to trying to make that goal line read. No harm, no foul at the end of the day, though. Ground Zero is still going to be up 2-0 in this series as Misty just lets that drop in front of the net to say, yeah, we could have scored, but we chose not to.
We chose to not get another goal in our favor. And, well, you can kind of understand why. The game was going to be the same result no matter what. And at this point for Direwolves, they can't really focus on that game too much here. They need to look to the future because they're down 2-0 in the series. And while the comeback is possible, they lose another one, they have to reverse sweep against Ground Zero. And, listen, Direwolves, you're a very capable team. I've been hyping you up all day. I'm not so sure you're going to be able to reverse sweep Ground Zero.
Well, there are some positives, Bass, that I will give to you and the Direwolves side. Misty, much more involved in that second game. They had a couple more goals as an end result as well. The problem was Ground Zero's physicality in that second game, I think, was something that caught the Direwolves off balance. And for a team that loves to stay back, loves to play defense, loves to have the attackers come to them, I think that double demo play really emphasized the best way to get them off balance. There was 6 demos in total from Ground Zero, 4 of them from Anthus. That is what I think was the catalyst that got the Direwolves off balance, that got them off their game. And then came the Scorapalooza. Then came Ground Zero just running it up and getting situations like this. Direwolves, fortunately, they still have time to reset their mental, still have time to bounce back in this one, but that pinch right there was a thing of beauty.
Oh, it was absolutely incredible. But that's kind of the thing, is that Ground Zero are playing like the Ground Zero we know and love. Direwolves just aren't quite playing to the Direwolves we know and love at this point. It still kind of feels like for a team that is so incredibly defensively based, the fact that we're not really seeing any defensive highlights from them is rather telling here. So maybe we see a switch up in this next game here, but I am going to say, if they do not switch up their strategy, if they go right back to the same sort of strategy we saw in games 1 and 2, this series is going to be over before it starts.
See, I still think they need to stick to what was working with them in game number 2, but just be prepared more for the physicality of Ground Zero. Look to avoid those bumps and demos. Maybe be a bit more proactive in getting to that mid-pitch boost, but already you can see the return demos coming in, Fiber. Just unable to find the pinch. Misty, however, will follow through, and for the first time tonight, Direwolves strike first.
Oh my, and that's quite the play all around, not only for the fact that the Direwolves finally find their first lead in the series, but also that was vulnerability from Ground Zero's defense that we really haven't seen before. They looked a little bit panicked on the back end, and Direwolves, you got to start emphasizing upon that. If you can make Ground Zero uncomfortable, you can absolutely take this series back.
We'll see if they're going to be able to keep that moving forward. I love that touch from Fiber. Express already there, though, for Ground Zero. They're also, I think, kind of abiding by if it ain't broke, don't fix it, Misty. Unable to take that dribble to the house, and now Anthus looks to take it back that other way. Direwolves keeping 2 defenders back and just giving all of that midfield once again back to the Ground Zero side.
Into their side here, and it's a little bit of a tentative back and forth here. This is more what I expected game 1 to move like. Oh, what I didn't expect was that to become a goal. It's a beautiful shot from Express. I don't want to take away from it, but for a team, again, that is usually defensive, saves like that should have been made.
Fiber got to the play, just couldn't quite put it where they wanted to, unfortunately, for the Direwolves. Express is one of the best, though, when coming across that middle of the pitch and looking for those strikes, and was able to get all of that one. So even when the Direwolves get their coveted goal number 1, usually they'd like to sit back on their laurels, play that defense. It takes less than a minute for Ground Zero to strike back. I feel as if in that situation as well, kind of comes back to the point I was trying to make. Direwolves, they're just giving up the middle of the pitch again and again and again, and you cannot allow this much space for Ground Zero to play with.
Yeah, that's the big thing here, is that Ground Zero look like they've got that lethal striking ability that we hadn't really seen in the last regional, or at least not in the final day. Here, they have found it. Second goal goes to Ground Zero, and again, Direwolves look uncomfortable, and Ground Zero find their opening.
Torsos was just straight faster to the play than Fiber. No way around that one, Bass. Speed was on Ground Zero's side. That's what gave him the lead.
This isn't what we're expecting here. I can't further emphasize this enough. It's not that Direwolves look like they're playing poorly, but it just isn't how we normally see Direwolves play. A team that is usually so solid on their back end, waiting and enduring pressure until eventually they can find a solid counterattack, and when they do, they strike with just unreal force. Now we're seeing a lot of double commits and uncomfortable defense and offense, which isn't really putting good shots on target, and it's just surprising to say the least. And yeah, net's open. No one's there to take the shot though, Formal.
Direwolves, if you had someone in the middle of the pitch, I feel like they could have been there for it. I don't know what's so spooky about that middle of the field. It's not like it's called Elm Street or anything like that. It's perfectly safe and fine, Direwolves. You can press forward. You can take the fight to ground zero, or else they're going to take that fight to you. Another shot, this time from Torsos. Actually found Amphis getting in the way.
Getting in the way here, but unfortunately they're not able to get out of the way of ground zero here at this point. Direwolves pressed into their half for so long, and looks like they might be able to get an offense together here, but can they get a shot? Walcott in the center, but no! Torsos will boom this the other way, and Amphis will put this off the ceiling. Torsos tries to get the follow-up off the pass, but just look at the difference here. Ground zero move into the Direwolves half, and they stay there for a little bit, but they do so threateningly with so many good touches. Direwolves move into the ground zero half, and it feels a bit lackluster. They really do need to find that extra firepower that we've seen from Direwolves so many times before here, Formal.
At that same token, though, the Direwolves aren't necessarily a team I associate with a long, sustained attack. Torsos finds the reset, gets another one. Just add another to the reset count. I think we've gotten to double digits at this stage.
This is just filth. Perfect placement, perfect shot, and at this point, this is kind of what we're expecting out of ground zero here, and you can see Torsos is just happy here. That's something we really didn't see last week. It's not that they weren't unhappy about what they were playing, but they just didn't seem to have this much fun when they were playing. And for Direwolves right now, I think they also need to return to that. You saw the passion in their camps yesterday when they took that win. That passion needs to return right now because Direwolves, it's backs against the wall. You lose this game, you have to reverse sweep. And like we said before, that is a very large task against a team like Ground Zero.
Yeah, and again, it's the implications if you don't reverse sweep. Essentially, you'll be going to that third regional needing not only to win, but most likely a bit of help along the way as well. This is them fighting for those lands, hopes, and aspirations right now. A minute 20 left in this game, and Ground Zero does not look to be letting up. Look how Amphis just stalks his prey right there, stealing that ball off of Misty. Walcott is able to return the favor. Ground Zero, they're always looking for that bump, always looking for that demo, it feels. That's the answer against Direwolves.
And that's how they're continuing to make this team so uncomfortable, getting in their face and playing that nuisance play style. But the unfortunate thing for Ground Zero is they're not quite done yet here. There is still a minute remaining, and if they do score this one, though, that will be the end. But Walcott with a great save. Was going to say Direwolves still have time to make a comeback here, and here's why. All they need is one goal. They cut the lead in half, and 45 seconds left. They just need one more.
That was the slowest and most drawn-out bump play I have seen in a good long while, with Fiber just squaring up against Express, acting like a fullback in a game of gridiron and driving that linebacker out of the way. One goal difference now, Ground Zero. They're going to be looking to add to it off this kickoff. Amphis goes for the dribble instead of the reset, now goes for the late touch, but isn't able to find it. They still are giving Ground Zero that space across the middle of the pitch, and I don't want to sound like a broken record here, but as fun as it is to watch Amphis or Torsos just play with the ball across the middle of the field, eventually the Direwolves have to put a stop to it.
They just need to get in their face. Again, that's the reason why Direwolves look uncomfortable, is because Ground Zero are getting in their face and not giving them the room. They need to emulate that same strategy, and unfortunately, they've got 10 seconds left to do so here. Otherwise, it's reverse sweep time, and this ball going back into the Direwolves half. 5 seconds left. They just need to get an offense together, and a good pinch that could lead to something here. Misty underneath this ball, but not quite able to keep it up. Try to get it on top of their car, but unfortunately does not. And Max, we're in that scenario. It's a reverse sweep time for Direwolves if they want to stay alive.
Normally, I would be in the position, okay, this is looking like we are one game away from going to semifinal 2. We're on the verge. I mean, Amphis is already checking his phone, saying like, wait, is he taking a selfie?
He's taking a Snapchat. That man just sent a Snapchat.
Yeah, he's feeling cool, calm, collected right now. However, I want to go back to how this second regional has sort of played out so far, all right? How many reverse sweeps have we seen? I know there was 3 in round 4 alone. We nearly saw Forkidden do it as well. They came 1 game short against the team we see right here, Direwolves. I don't feel this series is over yet.
No, never, especially when Walcott's bringing out the hand towel. You know that's the key to victory here. He's getting ready. He's getting into this one, ready to play this out, and I really do think they're going to have to look to Walcott for some guidance here. He's a player who's been around the scene for so incredibly long, has been able to lead teams to places like this and taken results in places like this. Now is the time for him to show that veteranship and really keep this team calm and collected here, because, like we said, this is still very possible for Direwolves to make this comeback.
It is, but the key to the Direwolves' victory, I believe, has to come from quick, punchy goal to start things off, and then rest on the laurels, play that consistent defense that we know and trust from them. The biggest issue that I think we've seen from the Direwolves is their laurels have been coming up a bit short, and it's not necessarily due to shortcomings from them. I genuinely believe Ground Zero has elevated their individual performances to that next level, and this is a scary sign, I believe, for both Renegades as well as Riot on that other side of the bracket as well, because if Ground Zero continue this momentum, find that fourth game, you'd have to hope that those other two teams are playing their best, and we're not seeing, you know, the Renegades that went 5 games on Friday, or the Riot that hasn't been able to close out that top 2 performance just yet. Otherwise, Ground Zero, they could run away with a fair bit here today.
This might be the chance for Ground Zero to make some comeback potential after that first regional. Again, only Ground Zero would you say they got second, and it's a disappointing result, but it is. Again, Ground Zero, a dominant force throughout all of RLCS X, and for them to take that second place here in RLCS 21-22 was rather surprising. So let's see if they can maybe get this one done here. Can they finally close this series out? And again, we'd like to hope not, and especially if you're a Direwolves fan, you'd like to hope not. Direwolves lose this one, their ability to hold on to second place is all but gone, but they're not gone yet. They will stay in this series, and they will find the first goal in game number 4.
All right, the Direwolves comeback checklist. Check number 1, find a quick lead. We can go ahead and take that one down, doing it, beating the coveted Ground Zero kickoff as well. Fantastic stuff from the team in orange at this stage. Maybe they'll be able to add to it. I don't think 1 goal is going to be enough, unfortunately. Against most teams for the Direwolves, it would be, but against Ampus, when he does double touches like that, it gets scary close. I think they would like a second.
Oh my word, that's a little bit too close for comfort here. Direwolves, I get it. You guys have a strong defense, and you believe in your strong defense, but maybe give yourselves an easier path to victory here. Let's find out if they can do so, though. 30 seconds into this one, and Ground Zero now got an offense together, but they've also got a save on the other end. Fiber, fantastic defense here, and this is what we were looking for out of Direwolves. These on-the-line saves that are just spectacular.
That's a great bump from Torsos as well. Fortunately, Fiber able to get it to the corner. I know this stat doesn't exist yet, but I really would want to see what is the time differential in terms of turnovers. And what I mean by that is how quick from the Direwolves' first defensive touch is there a Ground Zero member then find that touch back? And I want to compare it to what the Direwolves do when they get, or what Ground Zero does, I should say, when they get their defensive touch, compared to when the Direwolves are able to respond in kind. Because I feel like it's less than a second each and every moment. A Direwolf member gets a touch, immediately Ground Zero is there to challenge. And that has been so important for Ground Zero throughout this series. This game, so far being the exception in terms of the Direwolves still able to find some success despite this oppressive attack. However, it still feels like only a matter of time right now before Ground Zero is able to answer.
And that's the thing here, is it still doesn't feel like Ground Zero have started to become uncomfortable, and that's something that, oh my word, I think Direwolves really need to find if they want a chance here in this series, because right now it feels like Ground Zero have that comeback potential, and with 3 minutes remaining, I'd honestly be surprised if we see this one end at a 1-0 score line. So Direwolves, you need to start keeping this pressure up. Again, like you said, that in-the-face mentality that Ground Zero are playing with, I'd like to see Direwolves do the same here. This midfield presence has been rather muted for them, and if they can start getting it a little bit more prevalent, I think we have a much more back and forth series.
I think it will. I hope we get to that back and forth series. I mean, this was a good setup from Walcott. Nearly able to find that 2-goal advantage. However, not quite to be the case just yet. Direwolves now control the middle of the pitch for what feels like the first time this entire series, and they're making their strikes from that middle of the field. Every touch towards the net, including one from Ground Zero. Oh, that's not the assist you want to see. 2 up, and now the Direwolves are a bit more comfortable.
Maybe the nerves are setting in for Ground Zero here. We saw the first goal, and we mentioned that it looked a little bit uncomfortable for Ground Zero, and that was part of the reason that maybe they started to, you know, loosen their grip. Now we see a second goal that quite literally is basically an own goal, so I'm wondering, are Ground Zero actually starting to feel the pressure from Direwolves? And if Direwolves, they are indeed, keep it up. This is how you guys win a series like this. Keep Ground Zero uncomfortable, because again, they may not necessarily be inconsistent, but they've shown moments of vulnerability, and they are absolutely showing one right now.
I don't want to be so bold as to say they feel uncomfortable at this stage. I just feel the Direwolves are now finally able to play their style Rocket League for the first time. It took 4 games to get there, but it's more the Direwolves are rising to that same comfort level. And now we're getting much more of that series I think we were expecting to see between these two teams, where the Direwolves can pose that legitimate offensive threat. And for the Ground Zero, who has been kind of dictating the pace from the start of this game until that moment, it probably is going to take a little bit for them to adjust. I don't think it's going to affect their comfort. I think it's just going to be a minor adjustment, and they'll be back to form. Maybe, though, that's going to have to come through in game number 5, as this one, only a minute and a half remaining, and Ground Zero still has found, well, no points to put on the board.
They haven't even really found a solid shot yet. They've had a couple of them that have gone on target, but aside from the one save Fiber was forced to make earlier this game, it hasn't really looked like Direwolves have been uncomfortable when coming to their defense here. So I'm wondering, has there really been a turnaround in between games there? We saw Direwolves took that tactical timeout to talk to their coach and get a little bit, recentered here. And beyond just becoming a little bit more focused, they just look like they have a different strategy. Like you said, this is the Direwolves strategy we normally see. They didn't display it at all during the first couple of games. Now that it's returned, though, they really look threatening.
Yeah, and just think to yourself how much larger the field now looks as Misty is able to find that strike and put it in. Again, Misty getting more involved. Torsos was hoping, I think, Amphis was going to be a bit quicker on that follow-up, but Amphis not liking the 50-50 challenge, tries to stay back on defense. Great opportunity for the Direwolves to pounce, now a 3-0 lead. But to go quickly back to my point, how much more open does the pitch now feel that the Direwolves have been able to play that middle of the field and have been able to utilize space for themselves? This game feels much more spread out, much faster pace as a result. And we're seeing the Direwolves actually be able to play to their strengths. It's a great turnaround, although Torsos reminding us, hey, Ground Zero, they still can pose a threat.
Yeah, they're still very capable of coming back here, but you're 100% correct. It feels like this game has spread out a lot more. I started counting the time in between after we saw that mistouch on the back half of Ground Zero that led to that third goal for Direwolves, and it was 4 seconds in the air before Misty ended up arriving there. In that time, Ground Zero should have had someone. Like you said before, it basically felt like anytime Direwolves had a touch, within a second, someone from Ground Zero was there. So to see not only over a second, but multiple seconds allowed for Direwolves to set up a shot, this is a different game. Everything has turned on its head here, and this is what we were expecting. Just didn't really seem like it was going to be a possibility after the first 2 games here, but finally, Direwolves have returned to form, and I think they're going to hold on to this game. A little bit of a scary scenario to end this one, but the outcome will be the same nonetheless. Direwolves get their first win on the board, and this is an important one. It's a necessary one at a certain point.
It definitely, well, obviously when your back is against the wall, every win is going to be necessary. I love that shot from Express to finish things off, especially because it's going to emphasize a point that I've been trying to make throughout this game. Ground Zero were still having their opportunities. They were still having their shots, and there were a couple shots that just went a little bit high or a little bit wide. Yes, they were mechanically difficult, but historically we kind of expect Ground Zero to make those. I don't know as if this game was as one-sided as the scoreline might make it appear to be. In fact, you can see sort of at that shot differential at the end right there, Ground Zero had their chances, and I feel for them to have a few of those unforced errors just miss slightly at the end. That's going to be an anomaly, and Direwolves still need to rise their game that little bit more if they're going to want to complete this reverse sweep.
100%. And I would say the only way we see Ground Zero start to miss more and we start to see this offensive inconsistency is if Direwolves play like they did in this game. If they can keep making them a little bit uncomfortable, eventually that little bit of uncomfort is going to turn into nervousness, it's going to turn into a tilt, and then all of a sudden Ground Zero are going to have lost their grip on this series here. So Direwolves, at this point, you need to keep on striking while the iron is hot here. You guys have gotten yourself some momentum, some very necessary momentum, I might add, and now that it's in your favor, you need to ride that all the way to victory.
I still just don't see Ground Zero as that type of team that will lose their mental, not in situations like this. They've been here before. They know what the deal is and what the implications are of winning this series and how important it's going to be to them. Also, shout out to their coach, Jimma, as well. Always been known as more of a mental coach than necessarily a skills coach. He trains them for situations like this. Even when they drop the odd game here or there, I still expect Ground Zero to come out firing. Case in point, Amphis almost gets one off that kickoff.
Yeah, they're definitely not going to be easily tilted out of a series if it's even possible to tilt them out. But Direwolves at this point, you need to take any little advantage you can get. If you're seeing just a little bit of vulnerability, strike while you've got the opportunity. They've done so a couple of times, but can they do it another game in a row? Still backs against the wall. If Direwolves want to survive, they need to take another 3 games in a row. Like we said before, against Ground Zero, that is no small feat.
Especially when they're already knocking on that door. As you can see, Ground Zero, all 3 members above that midfield line. I think Walcott recognized that too, was able to get a driving touch to the back corner. Amphis, though, wasn't able to rotate back, gets the dunk. Express might look for the pass back. Instead, it's just going to be Torsos having that simple read. Walcott gets there first. And for the first game in this series, Bass, we have gone a opening minute without a goal.
Yeah, woo! We'll take that. I like that. I like a little bit more of a tentative back and forth. It's nice when we have that firepower, but again, for a team like Direwolves, who usually show off their prowess in defense, I'd prefer them to be showing off their prowess in defense. And oh my word, they had to do it there, but unfortunately couldn't quite. The demo in the net opened it up, and while the following save was not a bad attempt, not quite enough to stop Ground Zero.
Again, to steal a gridiron term, Torsos just wanted it more on the line of scrimmage right there. Got through not 1, but 2 Direwolf defenders by physicality alone, and was just able to muscle that ball to the perfect spot for that goal. Ground Zero get that all-important first blood strike, and now they're going to try to add to it. Fiber makes the save, but winds up deep in the goal after response. That means Torsos can play with his food a bit, going for a T setup. Express will drive that one in. A 2-point lead for Ground Zero.
Uh-oh, Direwolves starting to look a little bit nervous here. A challenge in the corner out of Misty is going to leave them vulnerable. And Ground Zero, like we said, you give them a single inch, they will take a mile. And they've been doing that the whole night at this point, Formal.
I don't know if the Direwolves, though, are truly done. I had to look at the cams right there. Fiber was just shaking it off. Walcott did the classic crack the neck. All right, let's get serious, squad. But Express already was serious, and now it's a serious lead. 3-0 off of this play.
Yeah, and that's not the greatest play for Direwolves to go down another goal by there. A little bit of awkwardness in defense here, and again, this has kind of been the issue for Direwolves, is once that awkwardness sets in for their defense, they really struggle to recover and get back to a steady place. And, well, they do have time to get back to a steady place. With 3 minutes remaining, they've got plenty of time to do so, but they need that catalyst. They need a good goal, and they need it quick, and, oh, they will find it. Fantastic, just kind of drive around the net, bullying, and look at Torsos in that one. You can see he was frustrated by that.
Arms in the air, as it was just a straight up swing and miss. Even had he made contact with it, it was going to be an own goal in that situation, so it's not going to be the end of the world for them. However, Direwolves, that's the type of play they can build it around, and again, it's coming from Misty, not from Fiber. And low-key, sometimes Misty can be that heart of the team when on the pitch. He's the one who I do want to see step up in these types of situations, and that was a big goal, and that's a bigger save. Misty pitches it off the ground. Fiber unable to follow it up.
And there it is. There's that Direwolves defense that we know and love, something that's been missing for quite some time. And there's a great pass. Walcott pops this up. Is anyone there? No one from Direwolves ready to follow it up. And again, this is where we need to see that step up here. Direwolves, we said it before, when you guys work as a team, that is by far when your offense is the most effective. You cannot be leaving plays like that unanswered. You need at least a shot on target, because otherwise Ground Zero are just going to run away with this thing.
I mean, we saw Amphis with all the space in the world just dribbling it across the pitch untouched. And now Amphis is going to go for the dunk. Fortunately for the Direwolves, this time Missy's able to clear it across that center of the pitch. However, Bass, we've only got 2 minutes left in this game. There is still a 2-goal deficit. Torsos nearly making it 3. If the Direwolves are going to have to make something happen, it's going to come from this bump play. Finding the second touch, Misty almost gets it through yet again. They're throwing everything at the wall, nothing able to stick.
I'm about to break my monitor. Someone needs to be following these touches up for Direwolves right now. They're getting this offensive pressure, but it feels like it's solo play after solo play, and no one wants to be that person to make that risky play and try and get another touch on offense here. Unfortunately, this disorganization of the trio has kind of been commonplace at this point. They've got 90 seconds to figure this one out, because Formal, if they do not, that's the end of the series.
Absolutely. A lot of people do say that 2-goal lead is the most dangerous in the game of soccer. However, this is Rocket League. It's not soccer. And with the way how Ground Zero is playing, this defense has been looking pretty lights out for the most part. Of course, as I say that, Amphis swings and misses, but the ball was going to the Direwolves side of the pitch. End of the story, ground zero, they still look cool, calm, collected. They look in control. I like that demo from Walcott. However, the follow-up, once again, just not quite there.
Okay, that's the first touch we've seen out of Direwolves, and I want to say about 10 seconds. Fiber finally got a touch on the ball, but it just feels like Ground Zero are dictating the pace of play here. Direwolves, we mentioned this before, get in the face of Ground Zero. If you want a chance at this comeback, you need to stop giving them this room. They are setting up plays that are just getting way too developed and are wasting time that you guys cannot afford, and they're starting to recognize it as well. Going back and forth across the pitch, 3 touches in a row for Ground Zero before eventually we see a touch from Direwolves, but it's in their own half. They're backed into their own half, and with 20 seconds left formal, they need a miracle if they want to survive.
They need to get some goals through right about now. Fiber, though, can't make the read. Torsos definitely can. And with that goal, we have ourselves the dagger. We have ourselves the game matching series. It's going to be Ground Zero going to the grand final.
And that is that. Ground Zero, they did what we thought they would, but, you know, we were hoping that maybe we'd see a little bit more of a fight out of Direwolves. Like I said, going into this one, I thought this would be the display of Direwolves that we were hoping for. Them showing that they could really fight against those top teams. But, hey, listen, they gave a good fight here, but the unfortunate reality is they ran into a Ground Zero who look like they're back in form. Ground Zero are ready to play, and they're going to move to the grand finals with a very impressive performance.
And I feel like people who may have missed out on the stream on both Friday and Saturday, this could come as a bit of a surprise to them that Ground Zero has been looking that strong. However, they've just been getting better and better each time we see them on stream so far throughout this season. And this series, no exception to that standard. Once again, it is Ground Zero who does rise up on top. They're going to their second regional final in a row. And look at the ball touch differential. Torsos just absolutely taking that 5th game over.
Oh, 100%. And also notice that Direwolves, the only team to make saves that entire matchup. Ground Zero just locked them into their half, made them uncomfortable. And again, that's kind of the story of this entire series there, is that they just felt uncomfortable the entire time. Never really able to break out of their half and find a good transition. And it's a little bit unfortunate that, you know, that's the way that one goes. But hey, Max, that's the way the cookie crumbles.
Well, that's the way how it did fall apart as well, I suppose, for the Direwolves. Although, Hyperia, you were able to sit back and watch that series. I'm kind of curious what your thoughts were on the whole shebang.
Well, it is kind of that scenario where Direwolves, they didn't show up properly the way they are capable. Then they had a one showing where they actually played incredibly well, were able to take the game to Ground Zero. But after that, Ground Zero did Ground Zero things and just defeated them. It was a bit lackluster from Direwolves, it seemed for me.
Yeah, they had their moments, they had their strikes. However, it just felt as if those small fleeting moments of momentum were always quickly snuffed out.
Yeah, it just felt like the momentum never really was in favor of Direwolves. And while they had flashes of brilliance, it never really felt like they completely took over in that game. The edge always really felt like it was a Ground Zero, and, well, Ground Zero played like that. The confidence they showed to just continually challenge all over this pitch really feels like the reason they won this series.
Absolutely. And just in general, Direwolves, they still have those troubles with those inconsistencies. Fiber sometimes not quite being able to show up, but he has a lot of pressure on him as well. Beachley has 2 teammates who have to pick up the pieces as soon as, let's say, Fiber's not showing up, and vice versa as well. If another one isn't showing up, then the other 2 have to pick up the pieces.
Yeah, I mean, it was a rough loss for the Direwolves, but for Ground Zero, it is one step closer to Sweden, one step closer to that land. And in a lot of ways, I would have to think they just put a big blow to one of their biggest rivals from the spot. However, to probably explain a bit more what that actually means to them, what that win, I should say, we have Amphis from the winning side joining us right now. First of all, congratulations, Amphis. Fantastic win. How good does this one feel in regards to your march or campaign towards that top 2 finish?
It's always going to feel pretty good. We're just trying to confirm top 2, basically, obviously for the land, but I think what we're really looking forward to is the grand final, because we really want that top 1. Because 2 weeks ago we had a lot of issues, and we've been really working hard the past 2 weeks, so we're looking forward to it.
Speaking of that grand final, on the other side of the bracket right now, we've got Renegades and Riot waiting for us. I'm interested in your thoughts. Is there a team you would prefer to play there? Because obviously on one hand, you've got Renegades who look like they've been pretty much the best form we've seen them in quite a while, but you've also got Riot who seem like they're kind of on an upward trajectory. Are you looking to get a rematch here so that you can sort of prove that Renegades getting that win in the first regional was a fluke, or are you just kind of hoping that Riot take them out and sort of stop the top dog before they even can make the finals?
I think you always don't want to verse Renegades because I think they're definitely the top 2 team with us. But I know Ryder are always good. They obviously, we had to go to game 7 against them last regional. We definitely prefer Riot though, I'd say, but we'll beat either, so it's fine.
Ooh, okay, I mean, I feel like that also got said last time, and that didn't turn out
yeah,
too
that
great.
wasn't me though.
Either
It wasn't
way.
me. It wasn't me.
Okay. No, you got the proper talk. You got the proper talk.
Yeah,
I see. I feel it. Okay. Yeah,
Toast just
fair
isn't
enough. Yeah, looking forward to that major though. How are you gonna prepare for that? Because with the top 2 spot, it's very likely that you have secured it. Is there any way you're going to prepare for it?
I don't know, hopefully a boot camp if we do make it. Get there early, get a few scrims in. I know we've just been really building quite well the past 2 weeks, and hopefully we can just bring it to regional 3, get a win, and then bring it to the major.
Yeah, so obviously focus on the future right now. One more series for you guys, or well, I guess it's kind of 3 series or 2 series in one. I don't know. It's always sort of hard how to word that grand final. The grand final in your future, though, I've got to ask, you have some time to relax right now. You actually going to be able to sit back and enjoy, maybe get some Halloween festivities in today, or is that just too American for you?
Nah, it's fruit. Good for the brain. We need a win.
All right, fair enough, Gay. I get some lollies. I won't call it candy for your benefit, but maybe get some lollies, get that sugar rush so we can see more insane mechs moving forward. Again, congratulations, Amphis. Maybe we'll get a chance to speak again after that grand final.
Cheers, lads.
Nah, he's too focused to have fun with, you know, global festivities today. It is all focus right now for Ground Zero. One day I'll get Halloween to stick within this great country. I just don't think today is that day.
Keep on trying, Max. Keep on trying. You'll get there, man. I've got the belief in you. You're doing a great job. But we already were on board, and so at some point the rest will be as well.
I just think it's a great holiday. It's like, what's there not to love? If you're young, you're candy. It's great. You get to eat sweets. If you're older, you get to hang out with friends and dress up in silly costumes. It's fantastic stuff. However, we've got better fantastic stuff here, I do suppose. We still have another semifinal up ahead. It's going to be Riot taking on the Renegades. A lot of R's, and yet no one here dressed up like a pirate. Maybe we'll fix that. Probably not. Either way, we'll be back after a few moments.